Welcome back to Finnish Made Easier. Today we're going to be talking about past tense. So when we want to put verbs, instead of saying things like I want, we can say I wanted. Or instead of saying I am, we can say I was. To do this, there's going to be kind of 4 rules. I listed them here. We're going to find our present tense stem, find our past tense stem from the present tense stem. Then we're going to add our ending and soften if needed. And so these rule 1, 3, and 4 have already been talked about in previous videos. So if you don't know how to do present tense verb conjugation, then I would watch my videos on those first, because those are what cover those 3 rules already. And I'm not going to talk about those today. We're just going to be talking about finding the past tense stem. And then we'll maybe use these, but I'm not going to talk about how to do them. So if you want to learn about those before you watch this video, so it will make more sense, I'll put the link to those videos in the description. But if you already know how to do that, then you'll be ready for this video and it'll be really good. So, like I said, our first part of finding our past tense stem is to find our present tense stem. And I want to start with a little, premise that I put a star here. This is for every type of verb except for vowel TA verbs. So we can start with vowel TA verbs. If we have a vowel TA verb, we actually don't need to do the first step. That has its own rule. So before we get into how all the other verbs work, I just wanted to say that if you have a vowel TA verb, what you can do is just get rid of the get rid of the TA and add SI. So like a vowel TA will go to vowel SI. So for example, if we have the word like haluta, then it's going to go to halusi. So any word that has this vowel TA, we can just get rid of that TA and add SI. We don't need to find the stem. Another example might be like the word avata. If we have avata, we want to find our past tense stem, we can just take off the TA and add SI. So avasi. So haluta, halusi, avata, avasi, that sort of thing. But for all other words, if it's not a vowel TA, this is kind of a nice shortcut we can use if it is vowel TA, but if it's not vowel TA, our first step is going to be to find the stem, which we talked about in earlier videos. Then the next step is we're going to find our past tense stem. And so this one's got kind of this big chart here. And what we do is we take our present tense stem and we put it in this chart. Now it's very important that we're not looking at the full original word and putting it in this chart. All verbs end in A, and you can see that these endings aren't A. So that can really help you remember that this is the stem that we're putting into this chart. So we put it into this chart, and that will give us our past tense stem. And then just like with present tense verbs, we're just going to add the same endings, and we're going to have the same rules for softening. So that's why I'm not going to talk about them today. If you want to learn more about endings or softening, then you can watch those videos that I mentioned earlier. So the main thing is we just need to find the past tense stem, and then it will work the same way as a present tense stem. It'll just mean that it's in the past tense. An important thing to notice about past tense stems is they'll always end in I. So it's kind of a nice way to recognize them, is all these stems kind of end in different vowels, all these present tense stems, they're all going to end up ending in I. And that's one way you can kind of recognize these. And that being said, let's start out with what we do if our stem ends in I. So let's say we want to put the word oppia in past tense. The first step is to find the stem, which is oppi. And then the rule, if it ends in I, this one's really easy. It actually just stays the same. So oppi goes to oppi. So this one you just have to know off of context for if it's present tense or past tense. It's usually pretty obvious. But so if I wanted to say maybe I learned, oppia is to learn. If I want to say I learned, then I would just add an N onto the end of here, and then I would soften the double P to a single P. So I get oppin. So oppia, we say is to learn, and if we want to say I learned, then it would be just oppin. It's also the same as I learn, but you could just get it off of context with these ones that have the stem that ends in I. So oppin is I learned. The second type is if it ends in E. So if you have the word lukea, which is to read. Lukea, the stem is luke. We see that this ends in an E, so it's going to follow this rule. with ones that end in an E, we're going to drop the E and add I. So again, pretty easy since we know that a lot of times we're changing things into E's. It's pretty easy. So lukea, luke, we're going to get luki. So if I want to say he reads, then we could say han luke. But if I want to say he read, then I can say han luki with the I because it's in past tense. A really interesting thing too is when we're using han, we don't really usually double the last vowel. When it's in past tense, we just leave it as a single I, han luki. So an interesting thing to keep in mind, but sounds pretty similar if you're talking, so not too big of a deal. But han luki, han luke is he read, he reads. Or if I want to say I read, then I would add an N onto the end of here, and I'd have to soften that K. K softens to nothing, so we get luin. So I read is mina luin. So yeah, that's how that works. The E just changes to the I. This next one is a lot of the rest of the vowels. O, U, U. With these ones, if we have a word like kotsoa, we go to kotso, obviously. This one ends in an O, so it fits into this rule. With these ones, it's also really easy. Instead of just changing it to an I, we just add an I. Add I. So kotso, the stem would change to kotsoi. So I guess if we wanted to say I look, this is to look. Kotso is to look. If I want to say I look, I can say mina kotson. But if I want to say I looked in the past tense, then I can say mina kotsoin. Just to add a little I in there. Mina kotsoin. I looked. With this one, this is vowel, vowel. So if it's got any of these, but it's got maybe two of them, then we're going to use this rule. So if we have a word like yuoda, we have yuo. So this one is going to kind of take precedence over if it ends in O, if it ends in E. This is kind of important. If it ends in I, even if it's a vowel vowel, it's always going to stay the same. But if it's one of these two, or an A, and it has two vowels, then we're going to use this rule. So vowel vowel will almost always will drop the first vowel, and then we'll add I. So it's kind of interesting. We're going to drop this first vowel and then add I, so not the second one. So yuo, we drop the first vowel, which would just give us yo, and then we add I, so we get yoi. So mina yoin is I drink. Yuo is to drink. So I drink is mina yuon. I drink is mina yoin. Sounds kind of funny. I like that one. Mina yoin. So yeah, if it's ever vowel, vowel, and if it doesn't end in I, we'll use this one. So another example is like saada, which is to get. If I want to say I got, has two A's in the stem. Saada, the stem is saw. AA, get rid of the first A, add I, so we get sai, mina sign. So yep, just that first vowel, get rid of, and then add I. Then this next one, I'm going to break it down into some specific types of A. You might notice the rest of these rules have to do with just A. We've covered all the rest of the vowels. The rest of the vowels are pretty straightforward, but if it ends in A, things get a little bit weird sometimes. So I've separated these specific ones out. If it ends in, whoops, I just dropped my marker. If it ends in vowel, vowel TA, LTA, NTA, or RTA, then what we're going to do is get rid of the TA, drop TA, and add SI. So it's kind of interesting. You might notice that that's kind of similar to like if it ended in vowel TA to begin with. Drop TA, add SI. Kind of a nice way to remember this rule maybe. Most of the times that it ends in TA, vowel, vowel, TA, LTA, NTA, RTA, which is most TA verbs, you're going to again drop the TA, add SI. So it can be kind of a nice way to remember. Just usually if there's a TA, whether it's at the start or later on, you probably are going to drop that and add SI. So an example of that, ymmärtää, the stem is ymmärtää with a single RTA. So since it ends in RTA, we can drop the TA and add SI for our stem. So we get ymmärsi. So ymmärsi. Ymmärtää is to understand. So if I want to say I understood, we can just add an N onto here, we get ymmärsin. I understand is ymmärrän, but I understood is ymmärsin. So again, these past tense stems just work the same way as the present tense stems. So ymmärtää, ymmärsi. Pretty easy, and that's with all these vowel, TA, LTA, NTA, and RTA. We'll just get rid of the TA and add SI. We'll do a little bit more practice later, and I'll include some of those. Our very last ending is A. And you notice I separated into two different kinds of A. A is for some reason strangely specific. So if we have these words that end in A that are exactly two syllables and the first vowel is A. I don't know why this is super specific, but this is how it works every time. If it has the first vowel A, like anta, you can see that the first vowel in the word is A, and it's exactly two syllables, anta. Then what we're going to do with these ones is drop A and add OI. So like anta goes to antoi. So I can say mina annoin. NT softens to NN, so when I add the N, I'm going to get annoin. Mina annoin. Versus if I just want to say I give, which is anta is to give. I can say mina annon, which is I give, but I gave is mina annoin. Now if it doesn't follow this strangely specific rule, if it doesn't have the first syllable A and it doesn't have two syllables, it has to be both of those, or if not, then we're going to follow this other rule, which is very similar. We just drop A and add I. So like otta, we can see it is two syllables, but the first vowel is not A. Otta goes to otti. So if I want to say this one's to take, I take something, otta. I take, obviously, it's otan, which the double T would soften to a single T, but it's otan. But I took, again, the double T softens, but it's going to be otin. Otin. Otan, otin. And so most ones that end in an A, if it's not a TA, are going to just go to I, but you have to watch out for these ones that go to OI. But if you're not sure, I would default to just the I, not the OI. But if you're pretty sure that it is two syllables and it starts with A, then you can use this OI. So good to be aware of those things, but not too big of a difference if you get it wrong, so it's not too bad. But this is how to do it correctly. So that was a lot. So now let's switch over. I'm going to switch up the board a little bit and we can do some practice to see if you guys know how to do it. I'm going to start with the original word, like katsoa or lukea, and then we're going to find the stem, and then we're going to find the past tense stem and add an ending and soften so you guys will be able to see the whole process. So I'm just going to switch up the board real quick and we'll do that. All right, I've changed up the board to add some examples here. I've got these 8 examples. And what we're going to do is I want to put them in past tense and then like I did them. So for example, korgatas to fix, I want to say I fixed. Or tietäs to know, I want to say I knew. So I'll talk about what they all mean as I go through them, but you don't need to know what they mean to be able to put them in the correct form. So if you want to try it on your own, you can pause the video now and try them all on your own. But if not, I'm going to go through them right now. And one thing I want to do before I go through them is one thing I remembered while I was kind of shortening these rules into this smaller place is also if it's between the two A's, if it has two syllables and one vowel, I mean the first vowel is A versus the other ones, if it ends in this A with the dots, it's always going to be 7, not 6. So it's important to remember A with the dots will never follow rule 6. So just keep that in mind. It won't cover any of these examples, but important to remember. Another thing is when we're doing this rule, if it would harden when you were finding the stem, you also are going to harden. So obviously this L doesn't harden. So it doesn't harden here, but if it was going to harden when we found the stem, it would still harden when we add the SI. So we'll kind of see that as we go through the examples. But if you haven't paused the video by now, then I'm going to go through the examples. So let's start with korjata. So first step is to find the stem, but we see that if it's vowel TA, we can kind of skip that rule. Vowel TA will always go to vowel SI. So korjata will go to korjasi. We don't have to find the stem at all with this one, korjasi. Then I can add my ending, which is going to be an N. S does not soften. So our final answer is korjasin. Korjata is to fix, so korjasin is I fixed. Tehda is to do. So let's do this one. First step, find the stem. Remember, HDA kind of has its own special rule. The HDA goes to a KE. So we get teke. We put that into this one. We see that an E, we drop the E and add I. So teke goes to teki. And then we want to add an N. So I'll make its own. So we get something like teking, but then we have to soften this K, and K softens all the way out of the word. So we can get rid of the K, and we get tain. So since tehta was to do, tain is I did. So find the stem, past tense stem, add the ending, and soften. So tain is I did. Next one, uskoa is to believe. So if I want to say I believed, first step, find the stem, which is usko. Then I can put it in here. If it ends in O, we just add I. Uskoi. And then we can just add our ending. And SK does not soften, so that's our final answer. Uskoin is I believed. Uskoa, usko, uskoin. Next one, tieta, to know. First step is find the stem, which is going to be tieta. And this one, you might think that it falls into step 7, but you got to remember always to check step 5. You can see that this one is a vowel TA. Vowel TA. So you got to make sure to check step 5 before you would do step 6 or 7. This one almost always takes precedence. Sometimes there's exceptions, like anta would technically fit into this word, but almost all of them, if they fit into this rule, will do this rule. So tieta, vowel TA. So we see the TA, we drop it and add si. Tieta goes to tsc. Then we can add our n. S doesn't soften, so I knew is tiesin. Tieta, to know. Tiesin, I knew. Alright, last 4. Auta. First step, find the stem. Auta. Second step, put it into here. We see that this one doesn't fall into any of these ones because it's a TTA, which TTA is not on here. So we're going to go into these two. It is 2 syllables, auta, and the first vowel is A. So we're going to drop the A and add OI, which gives us autoi. And then when we add the N, this TT will soften to a single T. So we're going to get autoin. Autoin. Auta is to help. Autoin is I helped. So stem, past tense stem, we add the ending and soften. Auta, autoin, I helped. Next one, tulla, which is to come. First step, let's find the stem. Consonant A goes to just the first consonant in the E, so tule. We could put that into this, ends in an E, so we're going to drop the E and add I, which gives us tuli. Then we can add the ending, which is tulin. Tulin. Mina tulin is I came. We can see that the L doesn't soften, so tule, tuli, tulin. Mina tulin. Next one, ela. This one's to live, like kind of like to be alive. So with this one, if I want to say I lived, then what we'll do is first find the stem. Ela. To find the past tense stem, it doesn't fit into rule 5. It's between these two. We can see that it ends in this A, so it's automatically going to be step 7, but it's also doesn't have the first vowel as an A, so it's definitely step 7 for a few reasons. So, well, I guess rule 7. So we're just going to drop the A and add I, which is going to be Eli. And then we can just add the N right onto the end, Elin. So Elin is like I lived. Ela, to live. Elin, I lived. This last one, tavata, which is to meet. First stem would be find the stem, but if you recognize this one is a vowel TA, so we can take the shortcut, get rid of the TA, add SI. And then this one does what I was saying, that since the stem of this is tapa, this V can harden, we're still going to harden when we do this. So, tapa C. And then we can add the N, because an S does not soften, so tapasin is I met. Tavatas to meet, tapasin is I met. So that was kind of a lot of practice, a lot of rules. If you need, you can feel free obviously to kind of go back, watch some things again, take it a little slower. But I'll put a condensed thing with all the rules in the video description. So if you want to kind of look through that and just read through it a little more simply, then you can use that for review and stuff. But I hope that made sense. If you still have any questions about this, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll try to answer this. But this will be really useful going forward. It adds to your vocab quite a bit when you can talk in the past tense. So I hope you enjoyed it and we'll see you in the next video. Heippa.